Alright, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another video here on the channel, and today we're going to be talking about Ubisoft and a pretty ridiculous claim that they've made in regards to a lawsuit. So currently, there are a group of gamers in California who have kind of banded together and they've all kind of group sued Ubisoft. Now, this is all regarding a game called The Crew, which was released in 2014. It was an online-only game, meaning that you can't play the game offline in order to basically do anything. You have to be able to access the servers, have it like check that you have a license for the game, and then you can play online with your buddies. Now, a bunch of people bought and enjoyed this game for a decade or so before the servers were shut off permanently, meaning that anyone who purchased a copy of The Crew, whether it be digital, physical, doesn't really matter. It is basically a glorified paperweight or a digital paperweight. You can't play it, you can't use it. It is completely worthless after all these years. Now, these people decided to sue Ubisoft in what would probably be a very transformative case for the gaming industry. Now, I think we all know there is a growing trend with this whole online-only kind of shit going on in gaming where companies, they'll sell you a game, and then when they decide that, hey, we're gonna shut the servers off to save ourselves money, what you've bought is basically worthless. You can't use it, you can't do anything with it, you cannot play the game. Now, Ubisoft has stood on their own business with a very ridiculous, very negatively received quote that they've already said before, but seeing them kind of double down on it is a very miraculously ridiculous claim here. I mean, you would think that just from the PR that this would cause, that this would be a very, no-go kind of situation, but I think the problem is so many gaming fans in the industry are like cuck-brained by the industry that these companies think that they can just walk all over everybody, and it's not just one company anymore. It seems like every major gaming company, they're kind of trending this way. They want to make everything online only, they want to make everything digital only, they want to make everything an exclusive license to access, because the idea of you owning anything that you buy is apparently fucking pathetic. So, Ubisoft responded to California gamers' The Crew shutdown lawsuit in late February, filing to dismiss the case. The company's lawyers argued in filing, reviewed by Polygon, that there was no reason for players to believe they were purchasing, quote, unfettered ownership rights in the game. Ubisoft has made it clear, lawyers claimed, that when you buy a copy of The Crew, you're merely buying a limited access license. Quote, frustrated with Ubisoft's recent decision to retire the game following a notice period delineated on the product's packaging, plaintiffs apply a kitchen sink approach on behalf of a putative class of nationwide customers, alleging 8 causes of action, including violations of California's false advertising law, unfair competition law, and Consumer Legal Remedies Act, as well as common law fraud and breach of warranty claims, Ubisoft lawyers wrote. Ubisoft released The Crew, its open-world racing game, in 2014 and shut down its servers a decade later in 2024 due to, quote, server infrastructure and licensing constraints. Because The Crew was online only, it meant the game became totally unplayable when the servers were turned off. Ubisoft offered refunds to players who, quote, recently purchased the game, but lots of people were unable to get refunds. The majority of players likely purchased the game much earlier. Now, there is a pretty popular saying online that I've said many of times too in these videos and on Twitter and whatnot, right? And I think that this should realistically be the mantra of basically all video game purchases from now on. These companies continuously tell us that we're only buying a license to the game, you're not buying the game, but meanwhile, when you go on their storefronts, they always make sure that there is a button that says purchase or buy, right? So my idea, and everyone else I would assume's idea who has a problem with this, is if me buying or purchasing your game doesn't mean that I am buying or purchasing your fucking game, then piracy is not stealing your product. And it's very rare that people will outright encourage you to pirate, but I'm gonna go ahead and do so here. If you have the capability to pirate Ubisoft's games, I think that that is absolutely 1,000,000% the right thing for you to do. Sure, it may be a little bit more tedious than just going and buying it digitally. Maybe you feel bad for the devs who will lose out on money or whatever, but ultimately this isn't about feeling bad or caving in to these companies. This is about standing firm and sending them a message, because the truth is, this is still the early stages of this rollout. Now, we've seen companies do this. Ubisoft is not the only one doing this online only or you only bought a license, bruh type of bullshit here, but the more that we allow this to become normalized, the more that we gleefully quote-unquote purchase licenses to these fucking video games and give these companies the satisfaction of basically pissing in our faces, if we're being real here, the more that this is going to happen, and then it's going to inevitably become every single video game is falling under this. Every single company is participating in this business strategy. And if that becomes the case, then I really don't know where gaming is actually going to head. Now, the part about this that scares me, and it's kind of sad, is the casual gaming audience. And this isn't to be mean, it's not to like degrade these people or shit on them. The casual gaming audience who they don't read this shit, they don't think about this stuff, they are so consumer brained that they more often than not will refuse to simply not purchase the video game that they want. They won't do that if it means that they get earlier access to the game or whatever, right? Basically, playing a video game 3 days earlier than they probably would have already is a valuable enough trade-off for them that they are willing to have corporations destroy their property rights management, whether or not you're allowed to actually own anything you purchase. And the thing that I don't think people realize is if we allow this to become normalized in gaming, which is one of the biggest entertainment industries that you can think of, it's going to inevitably become that way with everything else. And we're already seeing that with things like Amazon Prime, for instance. You go on there and you buy the latest blockbuster movie. Oh wait, you actually didn't buy the latest blockbuster movie. You bought a digital license for it that whenever the servers are shut down, or Amazon as a $1 trillion company can decide, well, fuck this guy, he doesn't have his movie anymore. That's how long you own things for nowadays. Now, one of the common arguments, and I'm sure people are going to say this in the comments, but Optimus, man, the Crew came out a decade ago. Why does it even fucking matter? Well, let me go ahead and give you an example of something here, okay? Now, one of the greatest video games of all time, right? Grand Theft Auto 4, one of the most critically acclaimed, fan-acclaimed video games ever made. It came out in 2008, okay? So almost 20 years ago at this point, almost double the amount of time that the Crew had, you know, in its lifespan or whatever. And miraculously, when I go plug in my PlayStation 3, okay, and I pull my disc of Grand Theft Auto 4 out and I put it into the disc machine, right? I put it right there in the disc drive, okay? Suddenly the game loads up and I can actually play it and I can enjoy it just how it released in 2008. It's really weird how that works. Or maybe, you know, like for instance, I've been playing on a PS3 emulator recently. I've been playing MLB 2K13, okay? It's weird how a game like that, you can go ahead and put that in your disc drive in your PS3 or play it on an emulator, whatever, right? And it magically works. Now, most gaming fans, like I said, they're kind of consumer brained. They only really think in the moment, and it's not really to say it as an insult. It's just the reality of the situation. A new game comes along every couple of weeks and it kind of diverts everyone's attention away from what's going on. And as a result, companies like Ubisoft think they can walk all over us. They think that they can gradually normalize people not owning anything and liking it. And that's basically what they're trying to tell everybody. And that's what all of these companies wish that they could tell everybody. It's just like they wish they could tell you, look, you gave us money. You purchased, quote unquote, but you don't own it. We own it, and we get to decide what you do with it. And I think that it's just such a shitty concept to let all these companies hold that much leverage over the consumer. So these companies, they need to do something. They need to address this in some way. Or gaming fans need to do something about it and run these companies into the fucking dirt. Now, I will feel bad for the developers who are probably, you know, they're making pennies on the dollar compared to the fucking executives and whatnot, the ones who are actually making these decisions at the top level and saying these things. But it honestly would warm my heart just a tad bit if we saw an article in a couple of months that said the Ubisoft CEO was eating cold SpaghettiOs out of a can, living in a fucking dumpster, okay? And I know that that may sound harsh, that may sound mean, oh, how could you wish that on somebody? But when your concept of doing business with the consumer is alienating their rights as purchasers, ruining the concept of fair business between the consumer and the people who are selling it, I think you absolutely deserve it. I think you absolutely deserve to live in a fucking tin shack. And I think you deserve to wonder why your stock value plummeted 90% over the last 5 years. And let's be real, it's because Ubisoft, by and large, are not even making good enough video games to actually keep people's fucking attention. Back in 2014, maybe they were releasing something worthwhile with a game like The Crew, but today, I mean, like 8 out of their last 10 games or whatever have been either commercially failed, they have been controversial, or they were just meh, alright. you know, when's the next one coming out, guys? When's the next game coming along? Ubisoft are not big dogs anymore. They're not big enough dogs, at least, to be trying to do this. Realistically, I don't think anyone, regardless of developer size or whatever, should be trying to normalize this, but the idea that a company that has been on the verge of fucking dying is the one that's trying to tell me, hey, when you hit that purchase button, you don't own. Because on page 37, line 341 of our rights and everything that you sign, because, you know, you got to sign like a terms of service and a user agreement, all that shit, right? But because of that line that you very obviously couldn't or didn't read, we actually have the right to completely fuck you over as a consumer. Okay, well, fine. Have fun with your 90% drop off in stock. Have fun when I'm pirating every single fucking Ubisoft game that ever comes out from now until the day that your company dies. Have fun as we continue to see indie game developers be the ones that are making the hits in gaming, being the successful ones in gaming. And when push comes to shove, right, and the consequences of their actions finally start rolling back around, don't come begging to us for us to come back and give you our business. Because I am never going to buy another Ubisoft game. It doesn't matter. I don't fucking like Assassin's Creed. I've barely played Assassin's Creed. I don't care about anything else that they have. In fact, aren't we at the point where Ubisoft doesn't even own half of like their major franchises anymore? I may be wrong about that. I am just kind of speaking off the top of the head off something I think I read maybe a few weeks ago, but I'm pretty sure they literally sold off like most of their major franchises because they as a company are falling the fuck apart and they got absorbed. I think by like Tencent or somebody's. Tencent came in and bought a bunch of it or something. We're at that point now, and this is the company that thinks that they have the leverage or the power to talk down to the consumer like this. Ultimately, it needs to get to a point where like on fucking Steam or Rockstar Games launcher, whatever it is, right? Like EA, wherever you're buying your games, okay? If you're only buying a license, you're not actually buying ownership of the game. The word buy or purchase should be illegal to put on the button. You should be saying like rent license or something like that. Because if you're able to actually lie, because we all know what a purchase is. We all know what buying something is. When I go to the store, okay, and I'm like, all right, well, I need to get a bag of potatoes so I can make dinner tonight, right? I don't take the bag of potatoes up to the cash register, pay with my debit card, walk out of the store, you know, make 2/3 of the potatoes or whatever over the next week or two, and then Potato Corporation Industry Inc. doesn't then come to my door and be like, well, actually, you only purchased a license to rent those potatoes. We're going to be taking those back from you now, sir. And then they, you know, go up in my sphincter or whatever and pull the potatoes back out. That doesn't happen, okay? That never has happened. That never will happen unless we allow it to get to that point. And that's what's worrisome about shit like this, because 95% of gaming fans either don't know that this problem is gradually increasing or they don't give a fuck as long as they get their, you know, Nintendo or whatever, right? And I don't think this is a precedent we want to be letting corporations set for us, because it's not just going to be gaming. It's going to get to a point where anytime a company can do it, they can reasonably restrict you after a purchase from accessing the content. You're going to get these companies money-brained enough to a point where that is what everything is. And you don't want it that way, trust me. Sure, maybe buying your fucking video game instantly digitally is worth the time or whatever, but is it worth having your rights as a consumer stripped the fuck away? Just pirate the game, bro. Play it for free. Make these companies realize, if me not purchasing the game is going to affect you to the point where you have to revoke this completely brain-dead ideology that you've pushed into the gaming scene, then I am more than willing to do that. I am more than willing to maliciously harm your pockets to make you learn that lesson. And that has to be something that people have to be willing to do, or else every company, not just Ubisoft, not just Activision, Blizzard, whoever, right? It's going to be everybody doing it. And we don't want it to be that way, man. We really do not want it that way, especially in a world where everything is going digital. There is a good chance that future consoles won't even have disk drives. PCs are already at the point where having a disk drive is very rare. You know what I mean? I haven't had a disk drive on a PC since I was probably in middle school. You know what I mean? So it's to the point where we're priming these companies to have all the power, all the leverage, and we don't want it to be that way. So anyway, with that being said, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel. Follow me over on Twitter and Twitch at @SubToOptimus. Make sure to pirate Ubisoft's games, and make sure check out Shoptimus down below in the description. Whatever you purchase there, you actually own. Even if it is digital, if you buy my book, if you buy whatever, right? I'm never gonna revoke your fucking license. I can't revoke your license. You download the file, you have it, right? So that's the way things should be. So with that being said, until my next video, guys, this is Optimus, gonna go pirate Ubisoft's entire catalog and send the files to my friends, and signing out.